right, Lindsay Graham, thanks for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Very well. Thank you.
Well, thanks for being here. So I'm going to start with just a little introduction because you have quite the bio. Okay. But I want to start with...
Read the whole thing, all of it, all 5 pages.
I don't have all of it. I just have the first paragraph because I kind of want to start there. I think it's interesting. I think it's kind of your origin story of how, where you are today. So I'm going to go ahead and start, and then we'll just kind of kick it off from there. Yes. In 2020, when COVID-19 struck the nation, Lindsay Graham was the owner of a highly successful glamour salon in Salem, Oregon. When the state of Oregon bashed business owners with unprecedented lockdowns and mandates, Graham and Glamour Salon became a pivotal player at the center of the argument against these unconstitutional measures. Her name and face were splashed all over major media outlet headlines, and her defiance sparked a national conversation about the rights of business owners in the face of egregious government overreach in the midst of COVID-19 government-manufactured chaos. That's a lot of big words.
It's intense, I know. It's almost as big as sultry.
Superfluous.
Yeah, right. So tell us about that, because when I first started following you a couple of years ago, I didn't know that about you. I just realized that recently. So I'm interested in hearing that whole process.
Oh, good. I like to tell this story, actually, because it's like 4 years old. So a lot of people just kind of know me as the Patriot Barbie now, and every now and then I'll get like the cat video, right? Have you seen that?
Yes,
okay.
That's on my list to talk to you
about. That's where I started, was the cat. So yeah, I actually, prior to 2020 was not political, not an activist. I called myself like a lukewarm Christian, just kind of living life. Like I was a boss babe, right? The term. Had 6 businesses in Oregon with my husband and 3 kids, a 25 chair salon, 4 tanning salons, and a gym. And we were just entrepreneurs and minding our own business. And, I'm not proud of the fact that I'd like to say that I was totally asleep, like not paying attention to anything.
I think we all were, by the way.
Yeah. Kids in public school, like whatever, wasn't voting, didn't care. And the lockdowns came, and Oregon was exceptionally strict, like masks outdoors. You would get chastised if you didn't do any of the leftist propaganda. And so all 6 of our businesses were non-essential. And so we just kind of sat at home. My baby, Ranger, was 6 weeks old. No, he was only 2 weeks old. So I was like, cool, more maternity leave, whatever. And by the way, I don't think the government can control a virus, but whatever, Side note. So we shut down, complied. And like throughout the whole process, we weren't big news watchers. I was kind of like, I don't believe this crap anyway. I'm just enjoying the time off. But as it went on and on, I was kind of like, this is insane that Walmart's open and Home Depot's open and like I can't do hair. I mean, I'm licensed by the state of Oregon that says that my facility is sanitized and all this, stuff. And yet I can't like one-on-one do someone's hair. So it really wasn't about being defiant or being political or anything. It was just like, I'm an American citizen and this doesn't make sense. I think that you're trampling on my rights and not other people's rights. So I went to a Reopen Oregon rally on May 2nd. And mind you, like this was 6 weeks in, but it's hard to believe that like America was still shut down.
Wait, it was past the 14 days to flatten the curve? Is that what you're
totally,
saying?
way past, right? That's really when I was like, all right, so today's, whatever day, all of a sudden the virus is gone. No, it's not. Imagine that. Oh, 2 more weeks. Oh, of course. Okay, so now you're liars, and that there's the precedent that you're liars. So yeah, May 2nd, I went to a Reopen Oregon rally, and I genuinely thought, because again, not political, like everyone's going to be there because everyone agrees that like this doesn't make sense and the government's kind of overstepping and we all need to work for a living. And it was just kind of really eye-opening to see that it was like, hey, conservatives and Republicans are here, and on the other side of the street is like the leftists, and they all hate us and think that we're murderers. And I decided that day, I'm going to open up against the lockdowns, like not as a big statement or anything. I need to work. Like we need to pay our mortgage. Do you remember, guys, that like they would say that you didn't have to pay your mortgage, but then when everything was over, you'd owe all the money. Mm-hmm. So I was like, so we're going to owe like 60 grand in a few months. And where did I get that?
With interest.
Yeah, and penalties. So I was like, I'm just going to open. I'm going to start doing hair, whatever. The government's not going to do anything about it. And so I posted in this Facebook group, I'm going to open my salon. I'm going to do hair. I'm going to let my girls do hair. This is just the right thing to do. And that I didn't realize that Facebook group was public because like I wasn't big on social media, and it started getting shared like 60,000 times. And then the news was emailing me and like, we heard you're going to open. And I'm like, how did you hear that? Oh, we saw it on this Facebook group. I'm like, oh my word. But really, I'm not afraid of cameras. Obviously, I'm not afraid of speaking out. And I was like, what do you mean you need a statement on why I need to reopen? Like, you understand that I have to make money, that like business owners pay their rent and we pay our employees and now we have no income. So I started making kind of my first statements, and then the story blew up, as everyone knows. And from May 2nd, I announced it. May 5th, I reopened. And from May 5th to May 15th, the government said, we're going to kick you out of your building. We're going to revoke your business license. We're going to take your hair license. We are going to fine you $50,000 a day. You're going to issue you a Class C misdemeanor. We're going to throw you in jail. And then the last and final straw was Child Protective Services showed up, and they threatened to take my 3 kids. Yeah. And so that's kind of when the story went like global.
And you were posting about this the whole time. You were like letting people know that, hey, they're threatening to take my kids, fine me $50,000.
Yep. So like I was on Facebook publicly. I had an Instagram that was kind of hair related, that was private. And I wasn't an influencer or anything at that time and didn't really understand the power of social media. And so I would update things here and there, and started noticing like, oh, those videos are getting shared and they're going viral. And like, that's how the news was figuring out what was happening. And then I don't remember how many days in, but I had like an attorney come forward and say, we're going to support you. And like, we've got your back if anything comes up. Cause like, it was all coming up, right? I was like, oh, this is going to happen to me. And before I even opened, actually, Oregon OSHA showed up at my door and said, we hear that you're going to open. I'm like, okay. And they're like, if you open, we're going to fine you $1,000. And I was like, okay. But if you remain open, we're going to fine you $70,000. And I was like, don't have 70 grand laying around, right? The whole point is to make money, not pay you money. So that's when like the public started raising money for me. And like,
but could you imagine though, if they actually did that, and how you just said, I'm not paying you. I mean, the people would back you for sure.
So I'm currently not paying the OSHA fine. Like
you shouldn't.
Yeah.
There was $14,000 is what I got.
So you owned the salon, and then people rented space from you type things. How did your tenants, the people that rent spaces, they were obviously needed to make money too. So did you kind of have a split, or was it like?
Very shocking. Yeah. Like they should understand. There was other salon owners all over the US that were literally locking their door and telling their contractors, like, you can't even get your stuff. Like, we're going to follow the rules, right? And I was like, pay for the windows, work. I don't care. Like, is this really speakeasy hair that we're doing right now? You guys, like, I had single moms. I had ex-military. I had moms who were like the breadwinners. And I was like, I'm not your boss. And I'm also not the governor. And I also think that this is stupid. So, like, come in, sneak in, and do hair. I don't really care what you do. And you would think that because they were in the same position I was, like, no one's paying your rent for you. You can't make money. This doesn't make sense. That they would have all supported me. So I had 25 girls, and I don't remember the process, but like 3 of them the first week, like packed their crap in the middle of the night, snuck out, never spoke to me again. And then like another 3, and then another 3. And then by the time all of this is said and done, and it does get worse, by the way, like by the time it was all said and done, everybody walked out on me except for one person. So they couldn't handle we were getting called like the COVID killers. We were getting totally cancel cultured, 1-star reviews. If you worked at Glamour Salon and you tagged Glamour Salon ever, there were these crazy leftists that like would find your account. They'd hashtag Glamour Salon. They'd find your account, and then they would blast you for being at the murder salon. And by the way, like, this all turned into the racist white supremacist salon also, because, and this is what you didn't see on the news. So after I fought the government for however many days, finally the governor, Kate Brown, said, you guys can all reopen. And I was like, oh, thank you. Well, I've already been open. But now I'm not illegal while I'm open. So that was May, somewhere in June, right? The George Floyd riots started. And Salem, Oregon is a very like liberal, Antifa, crazy radical leftist city. And BLM rose up in June and said, someone posted on Facebook, when you start burning down businesses, start with Glamour Salon and kick Lindsay Graham's ass. And I was like, oh. So like, what did I do here? Now, like, what? You're going to burn my salon down and beat me up. For what reason? And the whole reason is because I'm a freedom fighter, apparently. That was the label. The reason was because I defied lockdown, so I must have been a far right-wing extremist. And I was like, no, I'm pretty sure I didn't just fight Oregon, so you like little white liberals could go burn my salon down. And so I did a call to arms on Facebook and just said, like, here I am fighting for my business again, this time against whoever these little radicals are. And about 400 people showed up outside my salon. So motorcycle clubs, veterans, ex-military, ex-police officers.
The silent majority.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, there's a movement here. Mm-hmm. There's like, these are my people that I don't even know these are my people. So throughout that process, Salem, Oregon did not have one broken window during those riots. And the chief of police called me a couple days after and said, I can never put this on record, but you saved Salem, Oregon from, otherwise it would look like Portland, Oregon. I was like, are you sure you want to say that on record? Because now they're making memes out of my face and I'm like the white supremacist and I'm a white nationalist and I'm a racist and all these things. And that's when I would say the majority of my stylists like walked out on me. I had like a assistant that was Hispanic and she'd worked for me for years. And all of a sudden she's like, my mom says you're a racist. I can't work here. And she walked out and I was like,
have you ever heard from any of those people since?
No.
That's the typical argument though, when there's no substance.
Right.
Oh, you're just a racist. And
yeah.
How can I fight that? Right?
I work side by side next to you, but I'm a racist. Yeah. I think I wouldn't work with you. That's what a racist is.
Christmas bonuses, probably all this stuff.
Yep.
I'm a racist.
Yeah. So it was really disappointing. It was really hurtful at the time. I mean, it was 4.5 years ago, so I can talk about it now. But at the time, it's like, just think about everyone in this room, everyone in your company. Like something gets put out in the media, a narrative that's totally not true, and they know this because they know you, and they go, we're just gonna go, or like they don't even tell you they're gonna go. They just pack their stuff and they're gone, and you're left without a business and without any support. And like the people that you've empowered for however many years, some of these girls 5 years, I go into the salon and their stuff's all gone, and I'm like, oh, not even enough respect to say, even after 5 years, you've never actually ever been a racist. In fact, I recall your best friend being black. Now I've decided you're a racist and I'm gonna walk out on you.
What kept you going? Why didn't you kind of quit like they did?
Thank God, the conservatives, the Republicans, the patriots of America, because while everyone around me physically was betraying me and walking out on me, I had like handwritten letters and cards from Texas and Florida and Arizona saying, thanks for being brave. Thanks for fighting for our rights. You're a hero. You're a patriot. And I was like, this is really weird. I'm a hairstylist. But like, they kept me going. I was like, everyone around me, and I didn't know that I lived in such a toxic culture, hates me and wishes me ill and wishes I was dead. But there are people in America that understand that I'm doing what I know is right. And I understand that, like, you recognize that what I'm doing is right. It's not for attention. It's not for media. It's not a publicity stunt, like my governor said. It's just like, this is what I know is right, and I'm speaking up for it.
How long did you stay in Oregon before you had to move?
Not very long. So I opened up in May, and by June, the George Floyd riots started, and we had closed on a house in Arizona by September. So, and mind you, it wasn't like, let's get out of here, let's move to greener pastures. From May to June, July, August, September. So within 3 months, they had like literally ruined our lives. We had hundreds of members canceling their gym memberships because the owner's wife is a white supremacist. All my stylists had walked out, and our tanning salons were like a franchise. But like the franchise owner was like, yeah, we're taking a hit. And I was like, I'm sorry. Do you want me to go?
But Oregon's like an overwhelmingly white place.
What's that?
Oregon seems like an overwhelmingly white place, and everything was about race there. It seems like everybody's a racist that doesn't follow what the government wants. Am I getting that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty impressive considering the damage that was done in Oregon by BLM and all
right.
And it's like,
Washington too.
Yeah.
Yeah. You guys are not wrong. This is so ironic to me to live in a primarily white city, state, metropolitan area where the people rioting for BLM and calling me a racist are all white. Like I went to high school and there was no black kids. I'm like, you guys are the ones preaching inclusivity and acceptance and like diversity, but you don't even have it. You don't have it. So how can you even label yourself accepting when you don't know, right? And all of these kids threatening to burn my salon down are white. So when you say that I stood outside my salon with an AR-15, I'm like, pointed at no black people. Like there are no black people at this.
Yeah,
right.
where anywhere was there a racist comment, or how did that even come up? Is it just that they're just parroting what the government wants them to say, or there was nothing. There's no inclination at all that was the case.
I was currently serving, like doing extensions on black people. Like I specialized in black hair. My best friend was black. Like there's literally no basis for calling me a racist ever in my entire life, ever. But because you didn't stand with BLM, you didn't put the black profile photo, right? You didn't hang a BLM flag. And not only did I not do that stuff, I actively said, I will guard my salon with guns against anyone who chooses to riot in the name of BLM. I mean, that was like, oh, you're definitely a white nationalist. Like that was like.
Now, did your best friend stand with you?
We weren't actually best friends anymore, unfortunately. I was like, too bad I don't have my token black chick to stand right next to me, right?
But did she come out against you at all?
No,
or was she standing by you, standing with you by you?
She supports me to this day. I wish that in that time she would have been like, hello, ex-bestie, right? We're not friends anymore, but
there's probably pressure on her.
I can tell you she's not racist, yeah. What's that?
I said there's probably pressure on her to do what they want her to do as well.
By the way, she's black, but she's half black. So the leftists in Oregon would have said she wasn't black enough to claim being black. I promise you. I know how their mind thinks, right? They would have said, well, she's not really black. I'm like, wait,
that's probably the most racist.
Can she be black, like half at least? No, she's not really black. And she's only saying that.
That only works for Obama.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. I actually very rarely argue with these people because they're so stupid and they have no basis for any of the arguments. But on occasion, I would say something like, you're so dumb and uneducated. My best friend of 15 years was black. And you know what they would say? How racist of you to try to use a black person to claim you're not racist. I'm like, you guys are giving me a headache. It's racist for me to be best friends with a black person and then say that I'm best friends with them. That's actually racist. Just because you're friends with a black person doesn't make you not racist. Actually, it does. I think you need to look up what the definition of racism is. It means that you think that they are lesser than you and you don't associate with them and like don't consider them the same, caliber. Like I wouldn't be best friends with someone like that if I was a racist. Right. So, yeah.
Now, where is Salem in relationship to Portland?
It is about an hour south. So there's like a series of metropolitan, like liberal cities, Eugene, Salem, Portland, Seattle, like all in a row up I-5.
All infected.
Yeah.
Because you go east and you get into conservative country, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But you just right there on the coast, those coastal cities.
Yep. And if you look at like our last election, it's like those weird little coastal on the west side and the east. You're like, what's wrong with you people? Is the ocean like a virus that's infecting you? Like they are all blue. Oregon says the same thing that Californians say. Like Eugene, Salem, and Portland are ruining it for us because everyone outside of those areas, and I mean the minute you leave those county lines, it's all red. It's all red. Yeah.
Yeah, California is actually mostly conservative, but the population that votes is the, LA, San Diego. Those are where you get your
all those clustered celebrities, Hollywood. Yeah.
What do you think it is? I mean, how do you think that those cities get like that?
I don't know what to say about California because they've got beautiful weather and stuff, but Oregon and Washington, they have the highest rate of suicide in the entire country. They also have the highest rate of serial killers.
Wow.
So all of their counties rank number 1 in serial killers. So I'm like, there's either a literal demonic possession over those areas and or the weather is more depressing than we let on. Like the rain 300 days a year causes you to kill people or kill yourself, like one of the two. Yeah. It might be weather. But California is beautiful, so I'm like, you don't have any excuse other than you're indoctrinated.
Well, so you moved here. You left Oregon after a few months of just being, an onslaught. Mm-hmm. And so tell us about, once you got here, what kind of happened after that? Did you reopen your salon or?
So left the salon completely, like just left everything behind, closed, lost a lot of money. But when I got here, I didn't have a job lined up. I didn't have a plan. We had closed the gym, or we sold the gym to the partner, closed my salon, sold our tanning salons, and moved here with like nothing. No jobs lined up, no potential, nothing. And when I got here, I genuinely like went through an identity crisis. Like back in Oregon, I was very, very, very successful and made a lot of money, and that was kind of my identity. And I didn't know what I was going to do here, and I didn't feel like starting a new salon and starting all over. I tried to go do hair a little bit at a salon in Goodyear, but my heart wasn't in it. And so I just kind of was like, I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Very, very discouraged. And I continued to fly back up and do some clients in Oregon once a month. So like that kind of just let me hold on to like my income source and all that. And then when I finally stopped doing that, because it got more expensive to go than to do enough clients, I started reading this book called The Eye of the Storm. It's by Ryan Stevenson. He's a Christian artist. And my aunt had given it to me, and I was reading the book on the way to Oregon to work on the plane. And it was about him like taking the punches and the hits throughout his life and not understanding what they were for or why or like what God was doing. And I continuously through reading that book, like bowed my head and I was like, Lord, just tell me what all this is for. Like why did I go through all this? And what's the next step? And what do you have for me? And can you just like, I know you don't always have to, but can you just tell me what the end game is here? Because I don't know. And it's starting to get a little discouraging. And I prayed that. And I opened the front of the book, and my aunt had not just given me the book. She actually wrote, I thought this story was really powerful. Hopefully someday you'll write your story. And I was like, never thought about writing a book before. And got to the hair salon. First girl in my chair is a girl named Jenny. Hadn't done her hair in 6 years. So when I see her, I'm like, it's funny that you would come to me after all these years after I'm like this horrible public figure now, right? So she sits down and I'm like, how are you? What's going on? Oh, I've had a couple kids, all this stuff. She's like, oh, and I wrote a book. And I'm like, oh, you wrote a book? And she's like, yeah, I just, wrote the book about this and this. And I'm like, weird. How do you write a book? And she's like, well, I sat down and I don't remember the story, but she told me. So it's like the second time in a 3-hour period that I'm being told, like, write a book. And then I hear from my publicist at the time. So I had moved to Arizona and I had not told anyone because I didn't want the left to like follow me. I didn't want Antifa to track me because they had been doing that in Oregon. And she was like, I think it's time that we release a statement that you moved and you took your money and like your business has brought in millions of dollars to Oregon and now they're closed. So like, haha, how'd that work out for you, Oregon? And I was like, okay. So she had written a press release. I was in Oregon and she called me and she's like, it's done. I sent you over a draft. So I read the draft. And at the very end, she wrote, stay tuned for more big news from me. And I called her and I was like, what's this big news that I don't know about? She goes, oh, I just kind of threw that in there because I don't know what we're going to announce. But I thought maybe at some point we could talk about you writing a book. And I was like, whoa, that is crazy. So I tell my assistant, I think God's telling me to write a book. And she's like, what do you mean? So I told her everything I just told you. I was like, that's 3 instances in like 6 hours of being told to write a book. She's like, that's confirmation. And I'm like, one more confirmation. She's like, the Lord's already told you. And I'm like, one more, God, one more. And she's like, you're being ridiculous. I'm like, he knows my heart. I want one more. So I work all day. I go back to my friend Jessica's house where I'm staying when I do hair. And I open a message from this guy named Rich Caprio. And he was just a follower. He'd followed my story from Texas and always sent me like just prayers and like encouragement. Total stranger. So I open his message and he's like, hey, I pray that you're doing well. I had actually told him that I moved to Arizona. Hope you're doing well, praying for your family and your kids and your big move. And I've just been thinking, you know, I really feel like, what are you going to do with your next steps? Maybe you should start a podcast or maybe you should write a book. And I was like, oh my gosh. So like 10 o'clock at night, right before I go to bed, like God gave me that one last confirmation. So I was like, I've never written a book, but let's do it. So that was kind of my like, the Lord has given me direction. Right. And I didn't write my book and become like a best-selling author or make millions or anything, but it was like his way of like giving me my next step. And I just sat down at my computer and I just started writing my story. And 370 pages later, it's like my testimony and my ministry and like everything leading up to how did you become the person that would like fight the state of Oregon by yourself with no political experience. And throughout that, writing the book, you know, like my flesh was like, I'm going to be a best-selling author and I'm going to sell millions of books and I'm this public figure now, right? But the reality was that it was him being able to like sit me down to focus and direct my mind to understand I don't do anything on accident, right? I called you to Defy Oregon for a reason and I have something else for you. And no, you don't get to know what it is, but just trust me. And here's how I've prepared you for this journey, whatever it is, your whole life. And so I go back into my 20s and kind of walk through like my testimony and what God let me do in my 20s and how horrible it was for my life, but how it became my testimony today. And realize like he literally has been preparing me for like the fight that we're in culturally and socially and politically my entire adult life. And I just wasn't aware of it at the time. And so through writing that book, I just felt like I'm just going to wake up every day and I'm going to do what I think needs to be done. And I'm going to speak truth, you know, as I'm supposed to, and let the Lord kind of lay the path. And that has just kind of been my social media, like waking up and making videos and posts and like speaking truth and boldly. And that's where I'm at today.
Was that your book targeted?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. And how did that end up doing?
It did okay. I mean, the glorious thing is like when you write a book, you always have a book. Mm-hmm. So at any point, at any point, Donald Trump Jr. could read it and be like, this is awesome. And I could sell 5 million copies, mm-hmm. right? But, you know, I know that that's not the point. Yeah. But the beautiful thing is like taking my testimony as a whole and just having it. I've had followers be like, where can I hear about your testimony? I'm like, here you go. Mm-hmm. And I give my book away. I mean, I probably give it away as much as I sell it. Cause I'm like, this was anointed by God to sit down and write this. And if somebody told you go write a book and you'll never make a dime, you probably wouldn't do it. So I just am like, I'm glad that I was obedient at the time and even glad that I thought this would be like my next big break. And it really wasn't. It was just like everything about what I've done and who I am and what I went through with the left and the cancel culture and how God used it. It's all in like one sit down reading. So
that's great.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the time that you walked into a school board meeting in a cat's costume.
Let's. You got to insert the video like right here in the podcast. Okay, so I'd never spoken at a school board before, ever. And wanted to kind of get into like activism and just felt like I'm brave enough to face these liberals. I've already done it, right? Mm. And I live in Buckeye, and there's a transgender, I hate to even use the term because it's not a thing, right? There's a man, a 72-year-old man that dresses like a woman and calls himself a woman and sits on the school board in Buckeye, Arizona. So he oversees all the schools, and he often frequents the schools. So like he goes to the spelling bees, he goes to the classrooms, he visits the kids. And I'm picturing him like leaning over these little 5-year-old girls, and he's got a freaking 5 o'clock shadow, and like insert photo of Paul Bixler. He is like freaky looking, right? Looks like an electrocuted Christopher Lloyd. And every bit of man. And just leaning over these little girls, call me Miss Bixler, you know, like how confusing for children. It's more punishment than we care to recognize how confusing that would be for a 5-year-old girl. And so just the idea that this guy is in charge of children is like so not right. And so someone in my community said, there's a school board meeting, you should go speak up against him. And I don't know why they told me to, because I've never spoken to a school board before. So it's not like I was known for this. And I was like, yeah, I should. I'm going to. There's just some things that are so inherently wrong. You're like, yes, there's no way you can twist that this is wrong, right? And it happened to be after Halloween. So I happened to have a cat costume laying on my bed. And I was like, I should dress up like a cat and go talk about how stupid it is that if I put this cat costume on for me to actually think I'm a cat. Just like it's so dumb that you're wearing a dress and some pearl earrings, maybe some lip gloss, and you think you can tell people that you're a woman. And so that's what I did. I put on the cat costume, went there. I didn't call any posse with me or anything, which I totally should have. I just wanted to keep it on the down low, so I just went, sat there by myself. Like half the crowd, you could tell, was thinking like, who is this nutcase in a cat costume? Like I could tell that they thought I was a crazy liberal who thought I was an actual cat. And I was like, just wait, guys, just wait. And then the kind that maybe like the liberals, you could tell that I was mocking them. It was so funny. So each section of people, right, we're going to just divide them in half, liberals and conservatives. They each disliked me, thinking I was on the other side. It was really kind of fun. I was like, you should actually like me and you should actually hate me. So then I got up and wrote, and I had written out this very well thought out speech. It was not emotional. It was not hateful. It was not aggressive. It was like, here's the common sense of why you're not actually a female. And that was November 14th, I believe, 2022, 21. Anyway, it went viral like a month later. So I just posted it and I was like, I just bomb dropped this guy, ha. And then it went viral because people started taking clips of it and doing that cool thing where they make little 90-second reels or bomb drops. And it started getting shared, and like Fox News shared it. And I don't remember who the first really big one was that shared it, but Fox News called me and was like, hey, come tell this story. And I was like, ooh, that was like a month ago, but okay. And, you know, you don't make money off going viral. Like, it doesn't do anything for me to go viral. It's not like I'm the famed cat lady now, right? Like, what does that do for me? But the fact that it went viral, there's a couple of the guys on the school board that go to the same gym as me. And he came up to me and he's like, I was thankful when you made that speech. I was thankful because it made sense. And I was thankful that like Paul Bixler heard it. And he heard it without like, screw you, you tranny. Like, it was just like, you're not a woman. Stop doing this to children. Mm-hmm. But he's like, I'm really thankful that it went viral because now we're getting email after email after email. The parents in the school district don't even know that he exists. They have no clue that there's a 72-year-old man dressing like a woman using the little girls' restrooms at the events. Like, they don't know. Now they know because that video went viral. And I'm like, it's really sad, but it's true. People don't go to school boards. They don't pay attention. Like, this is your children's lives in the government's hands, and you don't know really what's going on, which is why I don't have my kids in public school. And here are these parents that how many years into the school are suddenly like, probably like, oh shit, oh crap, my 10-year-old daughter has had how much interaction with this guy on a daily basis? How confused is she? Has he done anything? Has he said anything? Does she call him Miss Bixler? Like, your child has been subjected to this man and you're not even aware.
Is this an elementary school? So little kids?
So, yeah, so he oversees the whole district, so elementary, middle, and high schools. And people send me pictures all the time. He goes to the spelling bees. He hands out the awards. He goes to the carnivals. He goes to the fundraisers. He interacts with the children a lot, and actually a lot more than most school board members. So that's kind of like, dare we say that that's a little fishy also?
So what happened? Did he get removed? Is he still there?
So they, so this was like 2.5 years ago. They, I don't want to say petitioned. They tried to get him tossed out, where they get all the signatures. There's a word for it. Anyone?
Petition, yeah.
Petition? Okay, they petitioned to get him removed, and it didn't work. I don't even know how. So he stayed on, but this election cycle, he got voted off. So he's gone.
That's good.
Bye. Yep.
Good.
Not soon enough.
And Buckeye's not a liberal place.
Nope.
But he somehow rose through the ranks and kind of under, it seems like.
Probably under the radar.
Under the radar, yeah.
Yeah. Well, he's 72. He's been a man. He still is a man, but he's behaved like a man his entire life. Married, a couple kids. His wife died, I think, 4 or 5 years ago. Like, his wife died, and then he started wearing women's clothing. So he went on the news and said that when his wife died, he felt like he could finally be his real self.
Maybe he just didn't want to do laundry. There's a way to, like, it's like, I'm just going to wear this. This doesn't smell too bad to wear.
My attorney's like, be careful that you only speak facts. And I'm like, so where did he get women's clothes? I'm not saying they're his wives. I'm just saying potentially, like, it just unleashed kind of this.
I like how you went about it, though, because you dressed up in a cat and you were very calm and you said, does anybody here believe that I'm a cat just because I say I am and I dressed up as one? Yep. I think that was a really good point you made.
Thank you. I think so too. It is crazy to me to be able to withstand like the nonstop propaganda that the left is pushing about men being women. And even they've gotten me a few times going, okay, Blair White, for example. You know who that is?
Yes.
He's very pro-gun. He's very attractive. He's prettier than any of the girls in this room.
You would think that he's a female if you just saw him.
So they take someone like him and they make me think, can he really go in the men's bathroom anymore? Like, no. He is going to get raped by another man. But then I'm like, that's still not fair. I don't care what he looks like. I don't care how beautiful he is. I don't care what he's done to his body. We have to like decide where the line is. Is the line how much you look like a female and then you're allowed in the women's restroom? Or is the line like, no, if you've owned a penis at any point, you're not allowed in the women's restroom? And that has to be said about poor Blair White, who has done everything that he can to be as female as he can. And probably he's like the most authentic transgender that you can think of. But he should still not be allowed. And so you have to like figure out where your line is.
I feel like when we can make a clear distinction on something, we should. It's not clear if you say, well, this person is woman enough now. There's just no clear line. Right. But the clear line is if you were born a man, you cannot be a woman. That's a clear line. It's the same with abortion, right?
Yep.
There's no clear line on when abortion should happen. So why don't we just make it at conception?
Right. And they're very good. I love it. At conception. Boom. That's science proves it too. Anyway, they're just so good at like, we know that they call us hateful. We know that they call us divisive and like, we're the mean ones. And especially if you're a Christian, then you're like, Christian rhetoric is hateful. But the truth is that it's working for them because they can sit there and gray those lines using someone like Blair White and tell me or you would subject, they would say her, you would subject her to using the men's restroom when she looks like that. And I'm like, it's not my fault he did that to himself. Why is that my fault? Why is that my daughter's fault?
Yeah, especially while my family's in that restroom.
Exactly,
you bet.
Yeah.
We're definitely not blurring those lines at that point.
Right. And the truth is that no one would know any different, right? If Blair White walked into the women's restroom, I would certainly believe that he was a woman. But he had to come out and say he's a man because he has to say he's trans. So now we all know. Well, now is the permission whether we know or not? No. So it has to be like the government has to decide and people have to decide. You can't like change your driver's license. Paul Bixler changed his driver's license, the trainee on the school board. His driver's license says female. I'm like, you don't even look close to like a female like Blair White. Like, right? We want to blur the lines again? You're not even on the gray area. You're not even in the gray area. But he changed his driver's license. So how does the government say you don't even have to cut off body parts, wear a shade of lipstick, or like literally, Stephen, you look nothing like a female. But if you said, I identify as a female, and you could convince your doctor to say that you're suppressing this identity, you could go get your driver's license changed and you could walk in the women's locker room and no one could say anything. What are they going to say? Oh, you're not wearing lipstick. Oh, you're not wearing a dress. Oh, you haven't cut your wiener off. Like, are we really going to mandate those things? Or are we going to say, if you were born a male, you are never, ever going to be a female, period?
Well, that's, they're using the terms, well, I identify as this. Well, awesome.
Yeah.
I don't care. That doesn't.
But it's meaningless. See, there's no way you can. There's no clear cut boundary there.
Right.
So
right.
Then where is the line? There's no line. So anything goes.
Yep. And again, the government coming in and saying, well, because you identify, now we can legally change your driver's license to female. Then that means you could just go change your driver's license to female. And this is the problem. I have very, very few leftists who will have a rational conversation with me, but I have a few. And one of them had said to me, so you think every person that has transgenderism, is a pedophile? That they all want to get access to your daughter in the locker room?
Go to the extremes.
No, I actually don't think that. I really don't. Do I think that Paul Bixler is a pedophile? I don't know that I do, honestly. But I think that he paves the way for every pedophile. Do I think Blair White is a pedophile? No. He is a very lovely woman, and I'm sure he's a nice woman. The conservative movement has embraced him. I would be kind to him. But do I think he's a pedophile because he's dressing like a woman and goes in the women's locker room? No. But do I think that he paved the way for this pedophile over here to say, well, I identify as a woman too. Oh, so now you get access to my 5-year-old daughter. I think that he paved the way. I think that Caitlyn Jenner paved the way. I think there is no one that's above or immune from being like, you contributed to the risk of my daughter's safety and my safety. I understand you have a mental illness. I apologize. That is your problem. It's not my problem. And if you want to mutilate your body to where now you don't know which restroom you go in, that is your problem. And you are not above me telling you that you created this issue, whether you're a pedophile or not. You created the opportunity for pedophiles to access my daughter. So it is your fault and shame on you.
We'll even take one layer below that. Just the confusion that it's going to put into our kids. When you have people that look like a man that say they're a woman, when we don't know the difference between a man and a woman, and we can't tell kids that some of the most basic fundamental things in our whole culture and our whole society that we've known since we've been around as a species. Mm-hmm. The difference between man and a woman is so basic and fundamental. If we can't tell that anymore, what do we have? What are we doing?
Yep.
How are we going to tell our kids anything is the truth? Right. Everything's subjective at this point.
Yeah, that's like the overwhelming and huge underlying issue is. It's like weird. I was like having like half awake dreams last night about the idea that we're changing the definition of things. And the definition of things is literally right and wrong. It's what distinguishes that there is no gray area and there is a fact and there is a false, right? So what are some of the things that we've been changing? We've been changing the definition of woman. Mm-hmm. And more so woman than man. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but like it's definitely less people care about if a woman changes into a man, but they definitely want to change the definition of woman. And they've changed the definition of like life, right? So if somebody plants a seed in the dirt and something springs up, everyone's going to go, oh, there's life. But yet like a new DNA strand is created when a woman becomes pregnant, but they refuse to say that that's life. So they've changed the definition of that. They've changed the definition of woman. And now we've got a society that's like, everything's gray. And it's like, no, it's gray. Actually not.
It's the hardest thing to deal with, I think, as humans when everything's gray. You don't have anything to stand on.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing, changing the definition of marriage. That's like not a topic I love to get into, but I'm like, the Bible started with marriage is between a man and a woman. So let's keep that definition as it is. We can talk about the gay people over here doing whatever they want to be committed to each other for life. But marriage, that word, is over here, just like woman is here, and it's XX chromosomes, and men is XY, and anything gray in the middle is just not. It's just not truth.
Well, it's pretty interesting how those definitions work because from 2020 to now, we've been told you got to trust the science.
Right.
Well, science says that male, female, procreate. That's how society keeps going, and But that's science that, don't worry about that science. Only trust the science
only
that
our
we tell
science.
you about.
Only
like, and that's that is like legit basic biology science. But it doesn't matter, because if you think you suck at sports, cool. Well, you can go, become a female swimmer as a man and just, dominate all these women. Everybody's cool with it.
Yeah.
Like
science. Yeah. And it's interesting how they pick and choose. It's really like, I try very, very, very hard, especially like having my platform be so public, not to be a hypocrite. And we're all hypocrites, so trust me, I'm definitely a hypocrite. But like when I make statements that are like screenshotable, right? I try so hard not to be a hypocrite. But their entire platform is hypocrisy. Like you're saying, trust the science. Like, wait a second. So in 2020, you can like obliterate us for not standing 6 feet apart from someone because one scientist said it was so. And that's like, you'll die on that hill. But now we say that women and men cannot be vice versa. And you're like, that's not true. And you're a hateful bigot. I'm like, but you won't die on that science hill. Like everything that you guys say is contradictory to something you said in the past. And you don't see that hypocrisy. That's embarrassing that you don't. I would be embarrassed if I were to live and breathe on like women can't be men and men can't be women. And then 3 years from now, I'm like, no, Blair White is a woman. I'd be embarrassed. They're like, you literally just said 3 years ago, trust us. It's like their whole, everything they say eventually counteracts something they've said before. I'm like, how do you not see that? And that's what makes me think that liberalism literally is a mental illness. Because how can you be a rational adult human with any kind of knowledge and education and not go, I'm willing to say that that doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? I'm willing to say that I'm wrong, or that this may be a controversial topic, or that there's a gray area there. But they won't ever admit that.
I think conservatives have something inside us that we don't want. We want to, when we say something, we want it to be right and consistent. I don't think the left has that at all. They say whatever they want in the moment. And if it's wrong, they just move on.
Right.
And the media kind of lets them get away with that.
Yeah. Well, and if you call them out on something, which is very easy to do, that they are wrong about, or that they are like contradicting themselves, that is literally, I mean, it's like predictable. That's when they're like, you're a racist, or you're just a...
That's the default.
Yeah, you're a homophobe, or you're a whatever. It's like, oh, so you can't make an argument for your actual argument, so you're going to call me a name, and that's going to detract from the actual argument. And the minute they call you a name or a slander or like attack your character, then the conversation's over. Because they'll never get back to, let's get back to where you said I was wrong and I actually didn't have a defense for myself. They'll never get back to that. That's why they do what they do. The same people that would say, Miley Cyrus, for example, she's released a photo a few years ago. It was like, fight for those that don't have a voice or something like that. And it was about dogs, like protect dogs from like animal abuse. I'm like, you're pro-choice.
Yeah.
So like you can't understand the hypocrisy and like fight for those that don't have a voice. You'll consider a dog, any dog at any stage. I guarantee you she considers a dog in a dog's womb life, but she would never consider that it's hypocritical to not admit that a baby in a mother's womb is also life. Like they're just so radical that way.
Well, dogs are pretty awesome though.
They are awesome.
They're pretty awesome.
And they are life, but so are babies. Dogs are awesome. Go Team Miley.
No. Well, every time I find myself considering like pondering life, I always do think, what would Miley Cyrus say right now?
What did that cake say again? Oh, yes.
Well, abortion used to be on the left. They say safe, legal, and rare. That is not even close to what they believe now.
Nope.
It's like everybody should have an abortion, have to have an abortion. Like how did they get that crazy?
Do you see how they do this with every topic? We'll start with abortion. Women who are raped or experience incest should be able to have an abortion. They're safe, legal, and rare. To like, well, anyone really should be able to have an abortion. To, well, it's a woman's right. To, don't tell us when we can or we can't. We can do it for any reason. Leave us alone. Like they go from where we can sort of have an argument to like being completely radical, right? They did that with with like transing kids. Okay. Well, very few children believe that they're trans. And if they believe that way, we should treat them. And then you would tell them, well, you know that like 12-year-olds are going getting their breasts cut off. No, they're not. Yeah, actually they are. Well, no, they're not. Okay, this happened in like one video. Okay, well, down the street right now, there's a doctor who will swear that last week, I asked her, I interviewed her, she removed the healthy breasts of a 12-year-old. No. Okay, well, here's the report or whatever it is. Here's the statement. Well, it's just not happening that often. Well, you just said it's never happening. Then I proved to you that it was. And then you're like, well, it's just not happening that often. Okay, so now I'm going to tell you that it is happening that often. And here's how many times it's happened. Well, it's their right. It's how they feel. Oh, so now their argument changes again. Mm-hmm. It goes from like, this isn't happening. You're a liar. You're being radical by saying that kids are transing themselves to like, well, that's our right. That's their right. It's like they do that with every single topic. You know, men are not changing into women to use the women's locker room. Men are using the women's locker room. Trans people aren't doing that. Actually, they are. Well, here's the situation where they are. Well, not that many people are doing it. Well, they're doing it at every Planet Fitness now. Well, that's their right. It's like, wait, you said it wasn't happening to like, now not only is it happening, you are okay that it's happening, and it's their right that it's happening.
I saw an interview with an abortion doctor who came on like an anti-abortion podcast, and he said he'd done thousands of abortions, and he said he thinks 10 of them, 8 or 9 of them were like rape and one was incest. And he goes, the lie about that most of these abortions have to do with incest and rape is ridiculous. He goes, the vast majority, probably 99%, are just birth control.
Yep.
Yeah.
It is less than 1%, like statistically less than 1% of all abortions performed are due to rape or incest. And so, but again, if you have a conversation, if you can find a liberal that'll have a decent conversation with you prior to calling you a racist or homophobe, they will have the abortion conversation until the moment it gets to rape and incest, and you say less than 1% of abortions statistically, factually, are due to rape or incest. They don't know what to say to that, and that's when they go into whatever rampage they want to go into about how it's a woman's right. Okay, so at one point you agreed that it shouldn't be like that widely spread or be done regularly. You agreed that it should only be for these people. But now that we tell you that it's for less than 1%, you're advocating for the other 99% to just do it as they feel.
So what's a woman though, right? Like they're totally willing to advocate for women's rights, my body, my choice.
Right.
They can define a woman then in that argument. But then we totally...
The whole thing's nuts. You see these reports of, the first man to have a baby. That's not actually a man, actually. let's be real here.
I'd be curious what they do I feel like we've had these situations where trans women, so men, boys, have like assaulted girls in a girls' restroom. So if he had never been allowed in there, this wouldn't have happened probably. But like, I'd love to see two... so 2 adults, and you can't choose somebody like me. It can't be me, because if you're a patriot or conservative or Republican, they'll immediately advocate against you. So let's take a liberal adult woman and getting assaulted, not in a bathroom, not anywhere, just like on the sidewalk by a man, so a trans woman, and see what the liberals say. I mean, which one are you going to advocate for? Because according to you, they're both women. But this dude probably beat the crap out of this woman because he's 250 pounds and she's an actual woman. But like, when it came time to say, who do you stand with? What would you say? Because you're claiming that they're both women. You claim to be for women's rights. Which woman are you going to advocate for and stand with? And it's like they'd have to again, hey, pie.
I think the loud minority would go for the trans person.
Right? They would.
I think the regular Democrat would probably be like, yeah, that's wrong, but they wouldn't say anything. But the loud minority is what gets the attention, and they would go for the trans person.
Yep. And that, to me, I'm like, that just shows how mentally ill you are.
Yeah. And that's probably destroying the whole Democratic Party. That's why they just lost in an absolute landslide.
I think so too. The more I tell people, we have got to keep doing what we're doing. We've got to keep fighting. We've got to stand up. We've got to be bold and speak truth. But even if you don't, we could just sit here and they are going to eat themselves alive because their policies, their mentality, their morality, their logic, it doesn't add up in any topic, in any situation. It never adds up. So eventually, people like Elon Musk, Tulsi Gabbard, and RFK Jr. are going to go, y'all are crazy. I'm going over here. Mm-hmm. Like, we didn't do anything to make them crazy. They just kept talking, and they made themselves crazy.
Yeah, we were watching, as we're watching the election, and it's getting more clear that Trump's going to win. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're listening to that, like, these are Democrats that, Fox had a pretty diverse panel, and Democrats are like, okay, what does this mean for the Democrats? And they're going, sounds like they need to start walking back some of these radical policies because, I mean, they consider Donald Trump this radical. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Thought, no way he's going to win again. He wins. Where does that leave us? Well, America popular vote, like that actually surprised me. Like, he won the popular vote, electoral college. You win the Senate, you win the
Dominated.
House. What does that mean for you? It means you better start walking back these just absolutely radical, crazy views because you're out of touch with America now.
Yeah. And I think that not everyone believes how I believe. I would call myself a radical. Totally okay with that because I'm radically pro-life and I'm radically pro-woman and that's fine with me, especially if I'm against their version of radical. But even the people in the middle are like, yeah, I'm not a Patriot Barbie, and I'm not I don't know, let's take a huge Democrat. I'm not a Kamala Harris or Joe Biden, but I don't know if I agree with men with penises being in the bathroom with my daughter. I don't think I'm okay with that. It's like, that's okay. Vote for Trump. Yeah. And they did, because they're like, I don't have to be an extreme one way or another to know that you guys are psycho. So I'm just going to vote for the anti-psycho, whether I like him or not. And that there is proof in that, because a lot of people don't like Trump. He's got an ego. He's got a mouth on him, right? He's not a perfect character. People who don't even like him are like, I have to vote for him. Otherwise, men are going to be in the locker room with my daughter.
Do you think God put him there?
Be very careful here. I think that God has a purpose for everyone. And I think that God has a plan for everyone. And I think that God anoints people for certain things. And I do think that God anointed him to be the president of the United States. That doesn't make him a disciple. It doesn't make him the most amazing Christian in the world. It doesn't make him perfect. It doesn't make him a savior. It doesn't make him anybody that we should worship. It doesn't even make him someone that you should look up to. It doesn't make him special. We're all anointed. Did we find your calling? I'm anointed to do whatever I'm doing that I still don't know, to be Patriot Barbie, whatever. That sounds so dumb, right? Yeah. You're anointed to do this podcast and make amazing rifles, and who knows what else God has for you. That doesn't mean I worship you. You're anointed to do it. If you're falling into God's purpose, then you're anointed to do it, and he put you there. I totally believe that God put Trump as president. I believe that he made sure Trump wasn't president 4 years ago, too. He's in control of that. Why? Because I think more of America needed to wake up. Everything's anointed by God. Everything's done by God. So if President Trump is the president, not only did God do it, because he does it all, but that was the plan, and I do believe he's anointed for it.
Yeah, and God uses a lot of imperfect people to accomplish his mission.
David.
That's for sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
So, back to the campaign and the pre-election. I think the only thing that Kamala stood on, that she didn't move to the center, try to move to the center because she's a far lefty. Mm-hmm. The only thing that she kept consistent was abortion. Mm-hmm. I feel like that's the only thing she ran on that was something that she's always been for. So I feel like the Democrats ended up running on abortion. Mm-hmm. That was their whole platform. Did I miss something there?
Nope. Before you even said it, the whole thing that Kamala never wavered on, I'm like, abortion.
Abortion.
They're like, that's it. That is literally her only talking point.
Yeah, that's what they said they were going to do.
Yeah.
And, when the whole Supreme Court ruling came down and they said, oh, Donald Trump did this. Well, the Supreme Court did that, first of all. But they were like, okay, well, we're gonna make them pay for it. We're going to, pigeonhole them, right? Okay, you Republicans, you supported this. Yep. We're going to make you vote on it, and we're going to make you, So that was the whole plan.
Yeah, and I'd like to say she did a good job. She failed, so she didn't do that good of a job. She lost. But they did a good job of creating a narrative around it. Like Arizona's a great example. Arizona already allows abortion up to 15 weeks, okay? For those of us who are very pro-life, that's still not enough. It's not enough. But that already existed. And we sat there and watched TV, and every single night, my husband and I got pummeled with abortion ads about how this woman went in and her baby wasn't going to survive, and these anti-abortion laws are going to prevent me from getting the health care that I need. I'm like, trying not to yell bullshit at the top of my lungs at the TV. I'm like, we already have, oh my gosh, if your baby's going to die, it's not dead, so you're not getting an abortion. It's called either your baby does die and it's a miscarriage, or your baby's still alive, probably shouldn't kill it then. Like, ugh. But they created these commercials that made it look like not only is abortion not allowed in Arizona, but it'll never be allowed again if you vote for
people are going
Carrie
to prison.
Lake. And I'm like, I know that they can't lie, so they somehow were able to write these scripts so perfectly to make someone who's unintelligent and ignorant and uneducated believe, well, if I don't vote this way, I think it was Prop 139, then if I get raped, I'll never be able to have an abortion. Or if I have a miscarriage, I'll be denied health care. Like, they did such a good job of manipulating the way that the proposition was written and portrayed and commercialized.
I feel like that's what the left has. They have these really catchy slogans that mean the exact opposite of what is going on. I feel like a lot more people would have voted for Trump if they really knew. They weren't indoctrinated by their schools, or they were a little bit more informed, and they weren't just watching, mainstream media.
Right.
I feel like Trump would have won even more, because the people that you hear out there when they do these little interviews on the street, it's like, what you're saying is ridiculous. Most people just say, "Oh yeah, Trump's a racist." That's their reason for voting for Kamala. Honestly,
we're right back where we started.
So that's. It seems like everybody, not everybody, but there's a big majority of people who voted for Kamala simply because they've been told over and over that Trump was a racist and a Nazi.
Yeah. Yep. But I think my husband read an article, and I was very impressed because he's not into politics, that like most people, when it comes to political propaganda, commercial, whatever, like articles, they will only read 2 to 3 sentences. So whatever you got to say, you got to get it in like 2 to 3 sentences on the top. And I understand that, because there's no way I want to read legal jargon ever. But that's what they did with their commercials is, they painted Carrie Lake as this, like, I'm going to ban abortion in Arizona. And as a pro-lifer, I'm like, good, do it. But that was never her goal. Like, she never said she was going to do that. But they would take sound clips and say, people are only going to listen to and or read the first few lines of anything. So we got to pack as many potentially gray area falsifications, manipulations into those few sentences, and it will paint Trump as this and Kamala as this. And that they very successfully did that, made it seem like she was all about women's health and women's, and abortion laws protect women. And even when that girl that died recently, did you hear about that girl that died from the abortion pill? It was not in Arizona, it was somewhere else in the Midwest, but so the abortion pill it's not Plan B. You can take it up to like, I think you can take it up to like 20 weeks. So the first pill that you take starves your baby. So it cuts off all the food to your baby and kills the baby in the womb, starves them to death. And then the second pill causes you to eject your baby. So basically you go into labor, but a dead baby. And after the first pill, you can get progesterone, and you can actually, like, if you haven't killed the baby, you can actually refeed the baby and save the baby's life if you regret taking the first pill. The second pill puts you into labor. So, okay, imagine like we have modern medicine and trust the science. So I would probably never choose to like give birth without a doctor or a nurse, like in my home on that couch right there, right? Like never. You're telling women to go take a pill and go into labor like on their toilet with no medical advice. They can just go get this pill from like a pharmacy. That's supposed to be
heavy.
Safe.
That's heavy.
So
oh my God.
Many women have died from this pill. Many women have bled out and gone and been hospitalized from this pill. And many women can no longer have children because of this pill, because of the damage that it caused, and they didn't have medical assistance. So this is what liberals are advocating for, right? This is pro-woman, being able to take this pill and like give birth to a dead baby in your toilet. So this woman lived in a state where the abortion pill was not legal. So she crossed state lines. She was already a mother. I think she had a 2-year-old. She crossed state lines and got the abortion pill legally from a state where abortion pill was legal. And then because there's really no follow-up or medical aid or anything for this. She took the first pill. Her baby was starving to death, dying inside her. She went back home. She never followed up with anybody. She took the second pill, went into a labor that was not good, and she bled out and died. Whose fault is that? Let me ask you. We don't really know, right? We don't want to say it's her fault. She's the victim. We could say it's the doctor's fault because the doctor, in my opinion, gave her something that was unsafe, right? First, do no harm. You're not going to believe that the left took this to the media and said that it's pro-lifers' fault. Because if she wouldn't have had to cross state lines and be out of reach of medical aid, she would never have died. So it's my fault. It's your fault. It's your fault. It's Trump's fault. It's Kari Lake's fault. Anyone who believes that she should have had access to this pill, it's your fault, because then she would have had access in her own town and then she could have gotten the help she needed. But it's your fault because you made her cross state lines and get it legally. So they took a woman who is dead from an abortion pill that they advocate for that is known to harm women, kill women, leave them with like an empty womb, unable to have kids. And they took that one story and they somehow made it pro-lifers' fault. And people believed it. I mean, that's how they can take a narrative and twist it into a few lines and say, if she had been able to receive the medical care that you prevented her from getting, she'd be alive today. Isn't that wild?
Well, that's
I
how
can
they
hear myself say it and it makes sense even.
That's how they can twist it.
Yeah.
They'll say anything and then they'll twist it into some ad that will be a tear jerker and a heart jerker for the liberal. And the liberal think that that's the way we need to do it. It's all about marketing.
Yep. And
propaganda, I guess you might say.
Yeah. And someone once told me, and I think that they're right, that the left tells stories and they tell emotional stories. They tell heartbreaking stories. They tell stories of like the 12-year-old that was raped by her stepfather and you're going to make her give birth. Poor thing. The 13-year-old boy who identifies as a female and he gets bullied because he's not allowed to live his authentic life. And you're such a bully for not letting him, get breast implants and cut off his wiener. Like they tell stories and we tell facts. We tell percentages. We tell statistics. And that's not heartbreaking, right? It's like no one's heart broke in this room when I said that less than 1% of all abortions are from rape and incest. Like that's a fact, but it doesn't that makes it. We got to tell more stories.
Yeah.
And that's why I tell my story about getting an abortion when I was 20, because I'm just another statistic. I was another girl that was told it was just a fetus and it was not a big deal. And once I did it, it would be over with and I'd be okay. And that's just not the truth. And so it's too many people are ashamed of talking about what they've done that kind of goes against what we believe, so that in a sense we can tell our story and it breaks more hearts for the empathy of what actually happens during abortion and transing kids. And you'll notice that when we do tell stories, when we have these transitioners that detransition and they come out and say, this should not be done to children. This is why it's harmful. This is what it did to me. And I'm an adult. They don't want to hear those stories. They shut them down because it's a story. It's a story that we can tell that goes against their narrative.
Yeah.
But if we told more stories, like detransitioners, like women who've had an abortion and it did this to them, then they can't refute that. They cannot refute my story.
Yeah.
You can't refute statistics, but that doesn't win anybody over. But I cannot say to you that my abortion in my 20s is the worst thing that I've ever done. It haunts me to this day. I still regret it, and it still causes me pain. You can't refute that. That's my experience.
The one thing that really bothers me about the left's push on abortion is they never talk about the baby. It's always about the woman. I think if they actually talked about both sides of the coin, it might be something people could stomach, but it's and they've not only turned it into just about the woman, but about now that it's women's right and women's health care. And it's so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous to see what they've done. You've abandoned the baby, totally abandoned. You're not even close to talking about that anymore.
And they couldn't because they they live off of like, it's a fetus, it's a fetus, it's a fetus, it's a clump of cells until it's outside of the, and remember they did start that way. Again, remember how they start one way and then they get radically this way? They started with, but before, 12 weeks, it's a fetus, it's a fetus. And then we started noticing that, women are now having abortions after 12 weeks, 20 weeks, 30 weeks when the baby's viable. Then they'll admit, it's a baby, but that baby is dependent on the mother. So it's still the mother's choice. Whoa. So now you're escalating now where you can't argue it's a fetus because you know good and damn well that it's not a fetus, it's a baby. But now you're like, the story's changed and it's the baby is dependent on the mother, so it's the mother's choice. And then we're going to advocate, we're going to go even further, and now it's up until birth. It's still the mother's choice and it's her body, and it's like, now they'll even admit it being a baby and still not care. Mm-hmm. Like that's how demonic and evil it is. Mm-hmm. So they couldn't possibly ever talk about a baby being killed because it would go against the morality of, we still want the woman to be able to choose. I wish, like you said, the government would, everything about the abortion argument is dependent on the government deciding when life begins. They haven't done it. How can they not do that? Because if a woman that's pregnant gets murdered, it's a double homicide. So they'll admit that it's a life, but then abortion is legal. So they will admit that the same baby pregnancy isn't a life. And we really don't have heartbeat laws. We don't have gestational laws. We don't have conception laws. If the government could say there is science, right? And the science does say this, and we all know a new strand of DNA is created as soon as a woman becomes pregnant. So that is a life, whether it's a clump of cells or a pea or a fetus or a baby, past that point of conception. Unfortunately, the science says that is a new life. So from then on, you can't kill it. It's murder, whether you're the mother or the father or a doctor or whatever. And then everything's right there, black and white. But I feel like we can't get past this abortion conversation on any side because the government won't lay down a law that says this is when a human life begins. And maybe I don't want that because maybe they'll say,
don't.
Yeah, maybe they'll say when it's outside of the body and then all hell breaks loose.
They thrive on chaos. Mm-hmm. And when you don't have clear-cut rules, chaos ensues, and that helps people who want to take power.
It's true. They still got us arguing about it.
Yep. I heard something one day that the government wants you arguing about abortion because it blinds you from the things that they're really doing behind the scenes with our money and the power.
Scary.
Yeah. Well, maybe we should talk about a little bit more upbeat topic.
Like flat Earth?
Like what?
Like flat Earth?
Like flat Earth. Well, I was thinking more about
Trump.
I was thinking more about maybe make America healthy again.
Yeah. Okay.
So what do you think about Bobby Kennedy?
Okay.
You clearly are healthy. You owned a gym. You care what you eat, what you ingest. What do you think? What do you think he's going to do for the country, and how do you think that's going to turn out?
It's kind of juicy. I don't know a lot about him, but I know that this has been his platform for, years, maybe decades. And, oh man, when I say 2020 woke me up, it went far beyond you can't shut salons down. I went straight to looking at the vaccines and what's in them and starting to listen to these other moms who were being called conspiracy theorists. And so I went from I'm opening my salon against mandates to I'm not vaccinating my kids anymore. And my final son, unfortunately, he had his vaccines right out of the womb, totally unnecessary, but he hasn't had one since. And he's 4 years old now. And I really believe that there is no one in government right now, truly out for the people, looking into it's okay to admit that we were wrong, probably need to readdress the situation, even if it means a complete uproar of a parent that's ever vaccinated their kid. Let's out with what this has done. Let's try to connect it back to autism if that's true, which I think it is. And let's remove what needs to be removed, whether it means admitting that we were wrong or not. I think that he's possibly could be somebody like that. I know that a lot of moms that I follow that are, we'll say anti-vax. I'm like, that's not a negative term to me if you're anti-vax. Like, they are excited about him.
It's hard for me to imagine being opposed to the things that he says he wants to do, like take food dyes out of food and, get all the crap that is in our food out of our food. And it's like, people still oppose that. Yeah. You think there's such an ideological issue on the left that anything that Trump, is it like Trump derangement syndrome now that he's on the Trump team? It's like, no, I'll take food dyes in my food just as long as he's not there.
I want the food dyes. You're trying to control us. Wait, same people that wanted you to wear masks outside and now they want to be controlled. They want their food dyes.
Yeah. You ever had yellow number 5? It's delicious.
Red 40s, crunchy bugs. I want bugs. Yeah, definitely Trump derangement syndrome for sure. But it's also interesting to watch, one thing I don't like about RFK is that he's for bodily autonomy.
Yes.
But in the abortion realm too. So he does think that women should have a choice because it's their body. So I definitely don't agree with him on that. But that topic was the reason that liberals loved him. And now that he's been petitioned by Trump, now they hate him all of a sudden. But if we're like, wait, so have you changed your opinion? Or you've just now, like you said, Trump derangement. Now we just don't like him because Trump likes him. Because he still stands for the same things.
He hasn't changed anything. He hasn't changed any policies. He's this exact same guy he was a year ago when he was running as a Democrat.
Yep. I'm trying to think, what are they all up in arms about? It's not the...
Well, I think they think he's an anti-vaxxer, but he's not an anti-vaxxer. No. He's said that a million times, but they don't want to hear that.
They don't. That's not a cute tagline.
Right.
Yeah, they got to have a cute name to call him.
I think he's just for more research and more...
Well, he does want to get rid of a lot of those agencies that are basically feeding the pharmaceutical companies in a bad way, and he's already talked about that.
I think that liberals they're so safe in their bubble of they've adapted to being taken care of. They've adapted to, if the government says we lock down, we lock down. If they say we need to mask up, we mask up. You tell us what to do and we will do it. And if Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is going into this saying the government has been wrong and we need to go in and clean out, but that's our master. They accuse us of calling Trump our savior, right? Which is hilarious. I'm like, the entire government is your savior. You guys live off of unemployment and food stamps and whatever else the government wants to give out. And when they locked us down for COVID, you were happy to get unemployment checks and sit on your butt for however many weeks, months. But if Robert F. Kennedy says, I'm going to come in and I'm going to uproot some things, you don't like it because that dismantles their savior, which is the government system that they love and trust. And we are now we're the actual Antifa. We're the actual anti-fascists. The government is not our savior. The government is not all put together. They don't know everything. And they're lying to us about a lot of things. And we would love a healthy distrust of the government. And for someone like him to come in and dismantle it and root out the bad and truly care about and give us what's good. But you don't want that because that would destroy your savior.
Well, it's funny how those platforms have shifted too with time. Rage Against the Machine used to be anti-man, right? We're going to fight the government. Now they're 100% big government. Occupy Wall Street, that movement. Now it's
like a Woodstock, man. Look at the liberals back in the late 60s. They are not the same breed.
Is making money on Wall Street, and they're like, we support you guys. We're cool. And now... and then everybody always tells me, well, the platforms have changed, even though the Republicans were always anti-slavery, always, well, now you guys are the racists because somewhere in the 50s or the 60s, the platform switched. I'm like, no, I've always been for limited government. I've always been for, but it's been a weird shift where people that were super anti-government are now government's the savior, government's there. And what's the government ever done? Any government. What's a good thing? Yeah. What good thing has the government done in the last 50 years?
Right. Well, and thinking about how I would be self-labeled a conservative, far right, Republican, whatever, being anti-vax, anti-government, pro-freedom, sort of converting into the crunchy, I don't want toxins in my home, I don't want this, that makes me sort of if you want to paint a picture like a hippie kind of.
Yes, that's exactly
which you would think would be liberal.
Morph.
Yeah, so you're right. I mean, it's definitely swapped. And it is interesting to recognize as a conservative, Big Pharma is out to poison us and kill us and make us sick so that they can make more money. And the liberals are like, but we want them to fund killing our babies. You're like, so you want more government while also being Antifa? Like, that's not the same thing. You're actually not liberal or anti-government anymore. You are like the system. You're obeying the system.
That's why you have smart liberals, what we might call classical liberals. Mm-hmm. The smart ones who are informed coming over to the right.
Wait.
Yeah.
Is that a thing?
So like Tulsi.
They're out there.
Tulsi.
Okay.
The definition of liberal, have you guys ever looked it up? It's to accept someone else's point of view, ideology with, I don't know, with like grace and acceptance. And I'm like, so I'm a liberal?
Yeah, right.
You guys liberals aren't actually liberals?
Yeah, our language doesn't mean anything anymore. That's liberal. What liberal is not what the definition is. It's totally opposite, actually.
And you're right. The classic liberals, the old lefties, the old Democrats, the ones that had common sense, like Tulsi and Elon, they're all coming over to this side because we're like, oh no, you're the party. So you're right. We did transition.
Well, John F. Kennedy, we've talked about this. By today's standards, he would be a right-wing nut job.
Wow.
Based on his platform and like how he like loved the country. He would literally be, even dare I say, Bill Clinton would be by today's standards. Wow. No, you're a right-wing nut job. He was the left hero forever. But if you look at his platform, look what he ran on, look what he tried to do. They'd be like, oh, this guy's a right-wing nut job.
Wouldn't it be fun to, like in this lifetime, to see someone like Bill Clinton come out and go, I don't know, Trump's doing an amazing job. I endorsed her. You're like, yeah.
Well,
like
we had that. We had that with RFK, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, he wasn't a president, but he's close to that. And I think that's why people hated him because they hated Trump. And then all of a sudden, kind of this hero of the center, kind of classic liberal and a hero of the Democratic Party comes out and says, hey, I'm going for Trump. Oh my gosh, that broke everybody's brain.
Yeah. They see him as like, he was like the safe middle ground. Mm-hmm. And then when it's almost like he went with the enemy. Yeah. Instead of like, I don't know, if somebody that I love and trust and I'm going to vote for and I believe in goes over to someone that I hate and says, but here's why I'm with him. I don't know, instead of being like, no, I hate you both. I'd be like, yeah, why? Okay, well, I did love and trust you. So what is it about him? Talk to me. Tell me. Maybe I'm wrong. Mm-hmm. I feel like they never, ever want to admit that they're wrong, ever. Not even to save face.
For conservatives, that's a good thing because they're just going to keep going down the wrong path. Right. Until they actually do admit they're wrong and what they've done and how they can change. I mean, Kamala thought that she could just follow Trump's lead and say, oh yeah, I like no taxes on tips too. She thought she could do that the whole campaign.
That was my favorite part of the whole election when she just stole his idea and was like, I gave up with this. Okay, bimbo.
Yeah. But I don't think that's going to, I think one of the turning points was the fact that she clearly did not want to go on Joe Rogan. You cannot, if you're a politician and you're afraid to go sit down in front of somebody and speak your mind for 3 hours, because in 3 hours, what's going to come out is going to come out, and people are going to know exactly who you are in 3 hours.
She'll be caught. That's
people
why
are going to go, Trump did that. Trump was willing to sit on Joe Rogan for 3 hours and she wasn't. I think that was a huge deal for people because nobody really knows who she is. I don't think she ever spent more than 18 minutes or something in an interview. And of course, some of them are softballs with ABC and NBC. But I think that was a turning point for sure. I mean, I know that was really close to the election, but I think that gave people an opportunity to go, you know what? I know who Trump is now. Yeah. And I think that was so smart of him because he was able to, people see these clips of the president and you just don't know if it's somebody behind the scenes telling him what to say or who he really is or who she really is. Yep. But to go on a podcast for 3 hours and to sit there and just talk, that gives people a real perspective.
Well, and to be confident enough to know that there's not going to be a gotcha moment. Like if you're telling the truth and if what you're saying is the truth that you believe in, there is no gotcha. Mm-hmm. And I know that he's never been above being scrutinized, right? Like he goes on these media channels that are definitely woke. And you're right. Like she would do these, I have it on good authority, by the way, that most of her rallies were fake. Like one of her security guards is my friend. He wishes he wasn't her security guard. Trust me. He's like an independent contractor. So he goes where he's told. And he's like, you know those scenes where she's stepping out of an airplane waving? There's nobody there. I'm like, what? Can I say this on my social media? And he's like, no.
Do they have some kind of like contract in place where they can't say anything?
Yeah.
Probably an
Probably. I would imagine
if you're going to lose his job.
If you're doing fake stuff and you,
he'd for sure lose his job. And yes, like there'd be like one cameraman there filming her, like, oh my gosh, hi everybody. And he's like, I'm not telling you there's a rally and nobody showed up. There's not a rally. It's just a staged. It's like a scene. And I'm like, oh my god.
They caught her that one time with the reflection on the plane.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, so good.
Yeah.
But you're right. Like she won't do speeches more than X amount long, and then everything out about her would be like these little clips, just like little clips. And she knows, and she was smart not to go on Joe Rogan. Because she knows for 3 hours she would have sat there, and eventually, like all leftists, your logic doesn't make sense. Yeah. And Joe Rogan is smart enough that he would have caught her multiple times in a hypocrisy that she couldn't back up. And she's like, this is going to
even if that's not true, I think that's what everybody would have thought. Because she didn't do an interview longer than 18 minutes. And every single one was a softball interview and she was really rough. And so to go on a show for 3 hours, even if that wasn't even with all the signs pointing to that, if that wasn't true, people would assume that in the first place. So.
Yeah. She might have been better off just to go on and look stupid and hope that no one watched it.
Like, okay, well,
then
this
did
is
not go on. Yeah. Well, it's okay because we won.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you're probably right. She probably would have been better off to go on even if she just made a fool of herself.
Right.
Then at least people would have known. I don't know. It feels weird to me to try to be think about a politician and just try to hide who you are. Like you're the president of the United States. People should know exactly who you are.
Yeah.
Like without all the legal stuff and all the media, like just go on and start talking to people.
Yeah.
Like at some point in time, if you talk enough, people get a sense of who you are. Yeah. It's not clipped out. It's not 30-second clips here and there.
That's what she's afraid of.
Yeah.
Her little demon would have come out. They would have seen she's a demon. But she also knows that she, like, again, like you're saying, you have to be transparent. This isn't like The Apprentice. This isn't a reality show. This isn't like entertain us. This is answer to us. You expect us to elect you as the president of our country. You need to answer for your policies. What do you believe right here, right now? And if you cannot get on a show and stand up for and speak about your policies and what you believe in, how can you even, I'm sorry, but how can you even be in the election? To me, like if you can't answer for yourself, and we're supposed to decide if you're going to run our country, you shouldn't even be allowed to be in the election.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree. That was my biggest, of course I don't agree with anything she says, but the fact that she's trying to hide, and Biden did the same thing in 2020. He campaigned from his basement and he got 81 million votes. Probably not supposed to say that, but.
Well, you said it. It's totally fine to say it. You can't say that he didn't get 81 million votes. You can't
imply anything else beyond that.
Right. My dead grandma voted for him twice. Actually. No, she wouldn't be my family if she did.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about, I want to talk about some of these appointments. So we talked about Bobby Kennedy.
Oh my gosh.
And then Elon's kind of jumped on over and he's teaming up with Vivek Ramaswamy to do this Department of Government Efficiency, which is really, I'm so excited about this. This is probably I'm more excited about this than anything because we all know our government is so fat and bloated that we need to just cut. And so what Elon did with Twitter when he went over to Twitter and just cut, I think he cut 80% of all the people. And I think his quote was like, if you're not trying to censor people, you actually don't need that many people. And it kind of seems like the same concept.
Interesting.
It kind of seems like the same concept. He's going to go into the government. And they're going to do what they can to just cut the fat everywhere. So what do you think about that?
Well, the biggest thing that I saw recently was that included Planned Parenthood, which I thought was just like epic because there is no reason our government should be funding any kind of medical facility that kills our own people. Like that's just crazy. So, right off the bat, I'm like pretty stoked about that. But I do think it's wild to watch Trump already at work, like making these massive, massive appointments and people that it's almost like he's putting together a Marvel comic, like superhero squad. Like who would be the very best at this? And you're like, boom. And you pick some huge celebrity that, like these are huge politicians that have made their way. And it started with RFK Jr. It started with him. Yes. And now it's just like all of these very, very powerful, not in a bad way, people with authority in a certain area are getting the job of their dreams to do what they should be doing. And it's amazing to watch. And it's like, what's he going to do tomorrow?
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't care. Well, he's only got 4 years left. He doesn't have to run for re-election. He's going to do exactly what the people want him to do.
And that is cool because the first election, he was being impeached like the entire time, and the media was slandering him the entire time. So he had to just like be on defense the whole time. This time it's like he gets to look at the grid and go, the entire freaking country, except for this strip in California and Salem, Oregon, and a little bit New York. Like, they all want this. So, like, he knows now that the country supports him. That's got to be a very different mentality going into the presidency. Like, he's not immediately going up against the resistance of the people. And now it's kind of like the media could try their games of slandering him and, oh, he's in cahoots with Russia. And it's like, well, you kind of already played that card. Like, it didn't work out for you. So how about you just move on? And even if they try that game, people are going to just immediately kind of hoo-ha it away. Like, we know your tricks. We know what you're doing again. Let the guy run the freaking country. I think he can do a lot more this term than he could his first term. And he's experienced now. Now he knows what he's doing.
All the things are going for him. He's got the Senate. He's got the House. He's experienced. He knows, like he said, he picked the wrong people because he was relying on the wrong people last time. He picked people that said that they were conservatives, but really just wanted power and really didn't have his agenda at heart. And now he's picking people who, well, he's made a few picks that are questionable, like Marco Rubio. He's made a few neocon picks that I thought were questionable, but for the most part, I'm pretty happy.
Yeah. And he's gotten, so he had 4 years in office. I'm sure everybody was his friend then. And then when Joe Biden won, with his 81 million votes, he got to see, like, who's going to turn on me or who's fake, right? Who's not with me? Who has spent the last, oh, yeah, he's an election denier. Okay, for a good reason. He's gotten 8 years in politics now as a president, ex-president, to see, like, who's actually with him. So this time when he picks, he's like, you showed me your hand, you're out. Like, you don't ever have a seat with me at the table again. I think that's, I love it. Yeah, huge.
Well, I mean, look at the difference between the VPs that he picked this time versus last time. I mean, who was Mike Pence, by the way, in 2016? Like, he was a nobody, and he's very bland, not exciting at all, and it makes you think that we probably picked him just because Trump doesn't want to get outshined. Right. But he went with JD Vance, a very smart guy, up and coming conservative. And so I think that tells you a lot. I think it tells you a lot that he's bringing Elon Musk alongside, because Elon Musk is probably the most powerful man in the world. So Trump and those egos have to be, they've got to figure out how to not collide, have an epic collision between those two.
To be in that boardroom. Could you imagine if he looks at Elon Musk and goes, you're fired? Yeah. You're like, actually, you're not. Elon's like, I bought the White House, so actually, I'm not.
So sorry, you're out.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good 4 years. I'm excited.
Well, and I've always thought too, like, you look at a politician, you look at it, Bush Jr. was not considered very intelligent. Like, everybody's, oh, he's an idiot. But, like, guys like Colin Powell, Condoleezza, like, the people that they surround
these
themselves
are like blasts
with,
from the past.
Yeah, those are the people that are really going to be advising him on policy and how he should handle things. Like, who do you surround yourself with? And, oh, well, Trump hates women. Cool. Well, he's already made some really amazing picks of females for cabinet members that you're like, wow, okay, she's going to do some stuff.
Yep.
So, like, I hate women, but I'm going to put the attorney general that really could make my life hell if she wanted to.
Right.
Like, he's made some really great.
It's almost like if the left says, you're a racist, he's like, I'm going to switch out JD Vance for a black person just to spite you. Like, he's just going to go out and do it on purpose. Yeah. And then he appointed a gay man to something. I didn't catch what it was, but it's just like, I don't know who it is.
Grinnell. I think last I heard he was, and it may have happened, but I think yesterday it was like he was thinking about putting him as ambassador maybe to Israel or something like that. Okay. But yeah.
And it's like, oh, I thought he was a homophobe.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
Proving everybody wrong.
Yeah.
One day at a time.
Yeah. So, okay, who else? We got Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah.
What do you think of her?
I like her. I don't know a lot about her. I remember everyone kind of saying she was trying to be sneaky. She was like a Trojan horse in the beginning.
Russian plant.
But yeah, I just think that I think that they've all just seen the crazy on the left, and they're like, we are so excited. The good thing about our side too is, besides the people that are like, she's a Trojan horse or whatever, we're like, welcome over, welcome to sanity, and we embrace them. Whereas the left is like, nah, once you're a traitor, you're always a traitor, and they feel that immediate acceptance and like actual inclusivity and acceptance and equality on our side. And it makes them just that much more on fire for.
She actually said that in an interview. She talked about that. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. It's kind of like when I opened my salon and I was not political, and everyone was like, "You're a far right wing extremist," and I was like, well, I kind of like them actually. They're pretty cool. They stood outside my salon with guns, and then I started looking into everything, and I just got radical naturally as a Republican. I just don't think you can sit in the middle in this culture right now and go, well, I don't really agree with either side. I'm like, you gotta, when you start looking at one side, there's some pretty drastic extremes, and they are wrong. So I feel like people like Tulsi, Elon, RFK Jr., they come over and then they kind of get their eyes open to everything and then go, I'm all in over here on the right.
Yeah, because we're so accepting. I mean, we're willing to talk to anybody. Conservatives are willing to talk to anybody. Both on the recipient side and on the giving side. Like, we're willing to interview anybody or willing to talk to anybody. It's clear, like, I mean, look at the number one Democrat, which is Kamala Harris. She was just not willing to talk to anybody. She did one interview with, I think, Brett Baer, went terribly. And that was it. So how are you going to get your message out if you only talk to your side? Like, how are you going to convince anybody to come on over? And I think that's why conservatives have ultimately ended up with Bobby Kennedy and guys like Jordan Peterson and Dave Rubin and those guys who are early adopters, like, hey, Ben Shapiro, these guys were, they've asked over and over for Democrats to come on their show. They won't come on their show. And they're like, well, Democrats don't even want to talk to us. Well, we'll just go to talk to people who want to talk to us. And that was all the conservatives. And next thing you know, if you're able to talk to someone who doesn't agree with you, but you can kind of work on them over time, and you're like, well, it's fun to talk to these people, and you can convince them. If you're not willing to talk to anybody like the left, you're not going to convince anybody.
And it's really sad too, because even if you could get them to sit down and interview, again, they know that their policies don't hold up. They know that their facts won't hold up, and they know that eventually they're going to say something that's hypocritical, and they're going to get caught in an aha moment because their logic doesn't make sense. Their science doesn't make sense. So they know in advance, even if we can be civil and have a good conversation, I am going to look stupid because I know that my argument will not hold up. And I think that's why they won't. And that's also why, again, they go back to just name calling, because it's their way of just like, how do I get out of this and save as much face as possible? Well, the way that they can save face is by not having the conversations, because they know that eventually we're going to catch them in a lie. So they're only just smart enough to know better than to try to have open conversations with conservatives.
You know what makes me happy is that Gen Z, at least males, I don't know about females, but I know this for a fact, that Gen Z males.
Same thing.
Same thing?
Men are women and women are men.
Oh, that's, I shouldn't have said that, sorry.
How dare you? How dare you claim there's two genders?
Wow. Did you just assume my gender?
But Gen Z men are voting overwhelmingly for Trump this election.
Interesting. Good.
Overwhelmingly for Trump.
I mean, again, it had to backfire. Like, how many young men are like, I don't care if the chick I see in the bar has a wiener or not. Like, they care. They care about that. They overlooked the fact that, like, there are still plenty of men who aren't gay. Like, you can try to say, I'm not gay because I'm dating a trans. No, you're gay. Like, if you're dating a man that thinks he's a woman, you're gay. There are so many men out there that are like, I would like to get married, have a bride, and have children. Like, I kind of want to stay normal. And they're all like, we're not okay with going to a bar, taking a woman home, and finding out she was once a man. Like, they're not okay with that.
Yeah.
So they probably saved the election, because the younger Gen Z girls are all about, can I abort my baby? So they voted for Kamala. They don't care about, I need a good man to marry me and I want to have kids, because they got told that that's a lie and that's not fun. They want to sleep around. So, like, Gen Z men probably what saved us.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Well, and I think Charlie Kirk had a lot to do with that. He has been at campuses over and over, and he's here in Phoenix. His whole operation's here in Phoenix. And I see him constantly at campuses just talking and talking and talking. And, you know, when he first started years ago, there was just a bunch of people who hated him.
Yep.
And now you see all the people in the background have MAGA hats on and everything.
Yep.
So he's done a really good job of changing that.
Yeah.
And, I don't know what the RNC has done. If I'm not mistaken, maybe Laura Trump has taken that over. I'm not sure. But I feel like it's just these independent organizations like Turning Point who have actually made a difference in our younger generations and in different pockets of the conservative party.
Well, he has helped make politics cool, and he's helped make it like trendy. I mean, I remember in high school, like, don't talk to me about politics at all. Like, that's not fun. That's for you guys. That's for the adults. You guys vote. You do your thing. And even at 18, it wasn't like, all right, I've got this big responsibility now. I was like, I still don't care. So he went into the younger generation and he primed their minds for like, this does matter to you and it will matter eventually. And let's not make it too heavy. Let's make it cool to talk about politics. And I think Trump helped to make it cool too. Like, he's a celebrity. He's a wealthy man. He's an icon. And so like having him be kind of the face of the Republican movement the last however many years has helped put like a cool badge on the political conversation.
I think Trump is a symptom of the craziness that's gone on, not just on the left, but in government in general, just the monster government machine that we have. And we're so tired. People are so tired of it and they know it. It's so blatant now, especially with social media. And like, we're not just controlled by one or two or three media outlets. Like, we have a lot of information coming at us. And so we all know that there's something weird going on behind the scenes in the government. And I think Trump is simply just a symptom of that. Because people say, oh, they hate Trump. Trump derangement syndrome is something. But I just think he is the only person right now that has the balls enough to go in there and break everything.
Right.
And because, any normal conservative politician would just go in there and just like, it would be too gentle. But he's willing to go in there and just take a sledgehammer with everything he has.
And especially because you said, because these are his last 4 years. He's like, what are you going to do to me now? I'm in. You've already tried to impeach me. You've tried to arrest me. You've tried to bankrupt me. You didn't win, so I know that I'm going in.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I think we're getting close to the end here. Do you want to have anything you want to say? Any plugs that you want to, your business or any of your
definitely plugged my book. For sure.
You did. That's for sure.
I did a good job of that one.
Tell people how to find you
plug
on
my merch store. Yes.
Tell people how to find you on social media, since it's pretty hard. Actually.
I'm starting to. My censorship is starting to lift.
Starting to lift.
Yeah,
Okay.
It used to be that you had to type my name in exactly, and I
then
still wouldn't come up.
something pops up that says,
a warning.
"Are you sure?"
Misinformation.
I had to type in your name exactly just to get you.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's starting to lift. And allegedly December 6th is like I'm out of timeout. So I'm counting down the days. But
Your sentence gets
Instagram.
commuted on the 6th.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I can monetize again because, I love to take money from Meta. The.patriot.barbie on Instagram. That's my biggest platform.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, it was great talking to you. Thanks for being
Thank you.
here.
Thanks for having me. So fun.
Thanks. Thanks, everybody. See you.
Bye.